I overdosed when I was 19 years old, and look, I'm not sitting here and I will not tell you a sad story about how hard my life was. I'm here to tell you how that overdose was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. Because everything that I have right now, the business, the freedom, the life I'm actually living, the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you about it all exists because of that rock bottom, not despite of it. Because most people use their trauma as an excuse. I weaponized mine. And today I'm going to show you exactly how I did it so that you can stop treating your trauma as a prison sentence and start using it as a training ground they are. And here is what nobody tells you about success stories. Every single person that you admire, like a celebrity, an entrepreneur, your favorite creator, they all had a rock bottom. The difference between them and everyone else is that they did not avoid their trauma. They did not avoid their pain. They used it. But we were taught to hide in darkness, to pretend that we came from somewhere clean, to act that success is for people that had their shit together. Look, I never had my shit together. Never. I grew up in a home where abuse is normal. I grew up in a home where alcohol and drugs is normal. My mom almost killed me when I was 8 years old. I was in court at 16 years old as a victim for rape cases. Because of that, I never finished school. I was always surrounded by troubled people, wrong lovers, wrong everything. And already by 19, I was working 3 jobs, doing drugs during shifts, and still hit zero in my bank account because of my drug addiction. And then the time came that I overdosed. And please don't get me wrong, because I'm sitting here and telling you about things that happened to me, but let me be clear that I did not have my shit together. I became the one that hurt other people as well. Hurt people hurt people. It's a cycle where we're stuck in. If something happens to you and you keep running away from your pain, you're going to hurt other people as well. But that's the part that most people want to skip. So long story short, I never had my shit together. So when I overdosed, that moment lying there wondering if this is really it, that's where most people their story ends. But mine started right there. But first, let me explain what happens psychologically at rock bottom. Because understanding this is what separates from people who transform from people who stay stuck. When you hit your lowest point, something breaks. And I don't mean you. I mean the illusion breaks completely. All the stories that you told yourself. I will fix this later. It's not that bad. I can handle it. They all shatter. You cannot pretend anymore. You see your life as it actually is. And that clarity, that brutal, painful clarity, that's the most valuable thing that you will ever have. Because most people spend their entire lives running away from that pain, running away from that clarity. They try to numb it, they distract themselves from it, they try to drink it away, they scroll it away, they fuck it away. But when you are forced to face it, when you literally cannot run anymore, you will get a choice that most people never get. Rebuild or repeat. So let me get personal for just 1 minute. And here's what I realized. I have been addicted to drugs for 5 entire years. I started when I was 16 years old and my addiction ended when I was 21. So as you can see, it was a whole process. It's not that it just happened in one day that I could say, I will never do drugs again. No, it's a process. But what the overdose made me realize is, look, when I started, I was always the mom in my friend group. And there were times in the beginning that like I was the most smart one. I always tried to care for my friends, right? I used to throw like drugs out of the window. When I noticed it, it was too much. And when I was at rock bottom, when I was 19 years old, I had this conversation with a friend of mine that suddenly told me, Minay, do you remember when we were doing drugs and that you literally threw half of the drugs out of the window? What happened to her? You got even worse than us. What happened to you? And for the first time ever, I told him, look, I'm done running. I thought that I lost myself, but I do realize now that I was never myself in the first place. Running away from my childhood, running away from myself. Because 3 jobs wasn't ambition, it was an escape. The drugs wasn't something that I just liked doing. I loved it because it was numbing my feelings. I wasn't building a life, I was trying to survive one. And that's when something shifted. That was the first moment that I asked myself these uncomfortable questions. Not how do I get through that, but what do I actually want to build? And I even got that question from someone that I met that I only knew for 2 weeks back then. He asked me, like, Mine, beside that you lost literally everything, what do you want to achieve in life? And I told him, I want to have a crazy business. I want to travel the world. I want to make all my dreams come true that I had as a kid. And suddenly he asked me, what about that we're leaving next week? Let's go on a trip. And that moment changed everything. And that's when I ended up solo traveling for a full year. Now here's something that I'm going to say that might piss off a lot of people. I do not regret my addiction. I regret the pain it caused. I regret the time I lost because of it. I regret what it did to people around me. For example, my father, my friends that I hurt. But the addiction itself, it taught me things that something else never could. So let me explain. One, what I'm actually capable of withstanding. You want to know what your real limits are? Try surviving something that you wouldn't think you would ever survive. Try being at zero, emotionally, physically, and financially, and still waking up the next day. That knowledge, you cannot buy that. You cannot read it in a book. You have to earn it through suffering. And once you have that, it's genuinely dangerous because you know, not believe. You know that you can handle literally everything. Two, I lost my fear of failure. And you have already lost everything, right? What is there left to be afraid of? Someone won't like my content? Well, I survived someone that tried to kill me. A business might not work? Well, I worked 3 jobs and still went broke. The fear that paralyzes most people just doesn't hit the same. And that's a superpower. Number 3, I developed an obsession with control. When your childhood is chaos, when you have no stability, no safety, nothing you can rely on, you either crumble or become obsessed with building something that you can control. I chose the second. I became so obsessed with building a life where I can call the shots, where no employer, no partner, no system can pull the rug from underneath me. And that obsession, it came directly from the chaos. For I stopped caring about what people think about me. When you have been the girl in court, the one that didn't have good parents, the girl who overdosed, the troubled kids, you realize something. People are always going to judge you, no matter what. The people who were supposed to love you already failed you. So why would you keep shrinking yourself for strangers? And that freedom to be exactly who you are, to exactly say what you think, to build exactly what you want, that came from having nothing to protect. Okay, so that's the mindset. So let me tell you exactly what I did. Because mindset without action is just journaling. After that overdose, I made one decision. I was never going to depend on anyone or anything ever again. Not a job, not a man, not a system. I started freelancing, and no, it's not like a beautiful plan. I hustled. I said yes to everything. I learned on the job. I was a self-employed event worker. I was scrappy. But here's what most people miss. I wasn't just working. I was building. Every client was a lesson and every project was a skill. Every paycheck was proof that I could create value out of nothing. And while I was doing that, I was also doing something else. I was healing, but not the way that you think. I did not sit in therapy for 5 full years to process a trauma. And I'm not saying that therapy isn't valuable, because it is. I also did therapy when I was younger, when I was a kid. So it is valuable. But healing for me isn't about looking backwards. It was about building forwards. Every time that I landed a client, I healed a little. Every time that I paid my own bills, I healed a little. Every single time that I chose myself, I healed a little. Because the wound at the core of all of it wasn't just a trauma. It was the belief that I didn't deserve better, that I was destined to repeat the same cycle over and over again, that I was broken. And I couldn't think myself out of that belief. I had to prove it wrong. So that's my actual advice to you. Stop waiting to feel healed before you start to build something. The building is the healing. The proof is the medicine. Now here's the part that is going to make some people uncomfortable. I stopped surrounding myself with victims. And I don't say all of this to be cruel. I say this because it's the truth. After that, I decided to change my life. I realized that it is not possible to save everyone, that not everyone wants to be saved. And spending your energy on people who are committed to stay stuck will only pull you back down faster than you think. The people who I grew up with, the one that I spent time with during the drug periods, the ones who knew me at my lowest, most of them are still there. And not because they had it harder than me. It's because they decided that their story is the reason why they cannot change. And I decided that my story was the reason I had to change. And that might sound harsh, it might sound cold. But here's what I know. The healed version of me is meaner. I'm going to keep saying this. Not cruel, not heartless, but boundaried and selective, unwilling to participate in cycles that don't serve me anymore. And that's not a wound, it's a weapon. Being nice kept me in chaos. Being nice kept me tolerating things that were slowly killing me. Being nice kept me surrounded by people that were using my empathy against me. The moment I stopped being nice and started to become intentional, everything changed. If you're watching this and you are at your rock bottom right now, or you have been there and you are still carrying it like very heavy weight, I need you to hear this. Your trauma was the training, not your destination. Every single thing that you have survived made you capable of building something that most people cannot even imagine, because you have resilience that they will never understand. You have clarity that they will never access. You have a refusal to settle that was forged in fire. And that's not a weakness, it's your edge. Now, the real question is, are you going to use it? Or are you going to keep that story holding you back from who you were supposed to become? Because the world doesn't need more people playing small or staying safe or hiding their darkness. It needs more people who took their pain and turned it into power. And I am telling you, from a girl who overdosed at 19, the one that still doesn't have a degree, the one that built a life of freedom from nothing. You can do this. If I can do this, so can you. But you have to choose it every single day. If this resonated with you, and if you're new here, stick around, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.